Hey, sister.
Sister?
Last week, we kicked off our Sunday shoes and danced through Footloose with your husband, Eric. And Amanda, I have to admit, I am still a bit shocked knowing that he was quite the break dancer back in the day. What?
It doesn't surprise me one bit. And the fact that his friend/girlfriend wrote in his annual things I like about Eric, number one, he can break dance, says it all. Not just about the fact he could break dance, but that says it all about the 80s. Like, that is hysterical.
It is.
But this week we're switching gears and altitude because today's movie takes us to a whole new level, literally. And let's just say we've got a very special guest who knows a thing or two about life at 30,000 feet.
That's right. She may not have had to deal with an inflatable autopilot, but her real life experience as a flight attendant, or as they were known back then, a stewardess, makes her practically an expert on today's movie.
So pack your bags and check into your flight because today we're diving into the comedy classic Airplane. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy, and this is Real Sisters Rewind.
Join us as we go back to the 80s.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Real Sisters Rewind, back to the 80s. I'm Missy, and as always, I'm here with my sister, Amanda. We're two sisters who love diving into the movies that made the 80s totally unforgettable.
And this week is no exception. But before we get started, we want to thank all of our listeners. If you're loving the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else. And don't forget, if you leave a review, take a screenshot, y'all, and email it to us at hello@realsistersrewind.com so we can send you a Real Sisters sticker as a thank you.
I'm telling you, our real fans are loving these stickers. I'm loving getting text with pictures, etc. That's a lot of fun. And not only is it fun, your reviews help us out in a big way. They mean so much to us, and they really help us spread the word about the podcast.
Absolutely. We are so excited to have a very special guest, as I said, joining us for Airplane. Missy, your best friend, and pretty much like a big sister to me from your childhood, is here to join us. So, Missy, take it away.
Yes, if you listen to our podcast with a purpose, and if you haven't, you should. And by the way, you can absolutely still give to the Real Sisters Rewind team. We will have the link in our show notes. But if you listened, you've already met my childhood bestie, my lifelong bestie, Dayna Moseley. And we kind of roped her in when she was up here, Amanda, for the podcast with a purpose to come back. And we're so excited to have her with us today. She just happens to have real life experience, as we said earlier, as a flight attendant. So she's the perfect fit for rewinding this movie with us.
Woohoo! Welcome, Dayna. And Dayna, as we welcome you, how long were you a flight attendant? That makes me think.
Oh, girl, I was only a flight attendant for about 2 years, but there's a story there too. So we'll get.
2 years is plenty.
Yes, 2 years of a dream.
It was a dream. It was a dream come true. That's all I ever wanted to do since I first started flying as a little girl. I remember going every summer to my grandmother's house when we lived in Houston, and we flew to Jackson, Mississippi. And I remember my brother and I, my mom and dad would put my brother and I on a flight, and the nice little stewardess always took care of us and gave us wings and cards and would come check on us. And I was just like, I want to do that one day. And
It's
so
kind of like how Missy just wanted to be a teacher.
I know it's just like you just live your dream. Like, why not? I thought, what would I regret more?
Exactly.
So there's yeah, there's fun there, but I think the funniest part in all of this is really going back to college when I first decided to live the dream. Like I
Oh,
was in
yes.
college.
We were roommates in Panhellenic dorm. We were Kappa Deltas, and I'm thinking we're going to be there all 4 years together. And all of a sudden, Dayna says, "You know that dream I've had of being a stewardess? Well, I want to go and interview for it." And I was like, "Great, that sounds wonderful, Dayna. You do it, girl. Go you." But that wasn't all, Dayna, was it?
No, I wanted my bestie to go with me.
And so I said, "I'll go with you." But that wasn't all, was it, Dayna?
We got there and we both, I was like telling Missy, like, okay, tell him this. Okay, say that.
Wait. What do you mean? Was she interviewed?
Yes, I asked her politely. She went with me.
What?
We went to Jackson. We lived in Hattiesburg, drove to Jackson where
I know,
they
but time out. When you say went with me, I thought you mean come along in the car and do this trip with
Tag
me.
along. Yeah, that's what I thought initially, Amanda, until we're in the car on the way. And she says, "Oh, by the way, I want you to interview too." And I'm like, "What?"
I never
Yeah,
knew this.
isn't that fun? That's
So,
what best friends do for each other.
So wait, did you have to go in your own interview? Missy? Like by yourself?
I did. But Dayna, tell them what you asked me to do for that interview. Do you remember that?
Oh, now did ask you like, I don't know.
Well,
Like mess it up or something?
Oh, well, no, just basically fake my birth date so I wouldn't be
What?
18 years old and they wouldn't hire me. So I put my
What?
birth date 2 weeks later than the
No.
interview date. And they told me to come back the next month when they were hiring when I was 18 and they would give me a job.
No,
Y'all
I
are
do not remember
hysterical.
that.
Dayna
Do not.
Moseley,
Y'all,
that's the story.
that is hysterical.
What was hysterical, like Amanda said, is that not only did I ask you to go with me, but could you interview as well? Just because I don't know, I thought it would be a fun experience.
And it was a memory, but not one you remember.
Well, I'll tell you this, Missy. She probably, you probably deserved it after you deserted her at the Kenny Rogers concert.
Okay, we're not going there right
I know,
now.
but I'm just saying.
We're not going there
saying.
right now.
Thank you. Just saying. Thank
That's
you,
right.
But
Amanda.
I mean, the bottom line is if anybody could see my best friend and me side by side, she's this tall, beautiful model, perfect for the then stereotypical stewardess. And I was this short, like, just like
Beautiful,
no,
petite,
but just
Petite
totally,
junior miss, everybody.
but
Yeah.
completely
Beautiful,
opposite.
talented.
Like
Yeah.
I told, like she never had anything to worry about that they were going to pick Missy Gowan over Dayna Curtis at the time. But Dayna, you did get the job and you got to live those 2 amazing years, living your dream. Talk a little, I know you'll probably share some things as we go throughout the podcast, but like if you wanted to give a high level thought process of what that time was like, where does your mind go?
My mind really goes to the hard work that goes into being a flight attendant that is against what everyone thinks, like the stereotypical
stereotypical.
stewardess would be. It is, I think about it is like a waitress in the sky, a nurse in the sky, a therapist in the sky, a cleaner because you're cleaning up everything, a radio announcer. I mean, you have about 10 different jobs and a bartender. Sorry, because you got to get those drinks right.
Oh, yeah. And there weren't many limits on those drinks back in the day. So then you were like a bar bouncer, probably sometimes.
I mean, between the drinking and the smoking, which
They were still smoking then on flights?
oh my gosh, it was
Yes.
full. Yeah.
Stop it. Remember on the flights how they had the non-smoking section on the flight?
Like it mattered.
So funny. Yeah, because, right, just the row and 10 rows behind it.
Like you couldn't smell it 10 rows back.
So where it was fun to travel, you still had your minimal hours of rest. It's not like you went to the fun cities and then you got to go out and explore. Typically, when we would have like our long layovers, it was more West Coast flights, like doing San Francisco, and then I would get like 36 hours. But I was all domestic primarily because I was so young and low in seniority. When you start off, you get more the domestic flights, but it was still good. I remember I collected postcards. So every city I went to, I bought a postcard.
And I can guarantee you she still has every one of them.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And did we mention, Dayna, the airlines, that it was Eastern Airlines that you were hired by? I'm not sure if we mentioned that.
All of our listeners should remember Eastern.
Well, maybe, but if we have any younger real fans, they're like, Eastern? What is
I'm
that?
probably my 70s, born in 76. I'm probably on the cusp of that. Dayna, were they based? Where were they based? In Atlanta?
We had a base in Atlanta, but Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember.
You were based out of Atlanta, though.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes, but their headquarters were Miami. I hope I get this right. I think it's Miami Springs, maybe, or something like that, because that's where we went for training.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there for, I don't know, maybe like a month. Like I packed my bags and I went there, and then you had to rank like where you wanted to be based out of. So I remember a couple of my top choices, and Atlanta was the one I wanted because it was closer to home. I mean, once again, y'all, I was 19. I was 19 years old.
This would be like Savannah being like, bye guys, I'm going to be an
bye.
airline stewardess. And you had outfits, like you had certain outfits you had to wear, very specific. I think even more so then than now.
And you had to wear pantyhose every day, didn't you?
They still do, I think, have to wear pantyhose.
Oh, no. No. Mm-mm. Not all of them. I know not all of them.
No, not all of them, but some airlines I think do require that.
That would not be an airline I would work for to have to wear pantyhose.
The things that have changed, it's comical. Besides our uniforms, they were so like the skirt and the blouse and the bow. And then you did have a pant option. But when you were working and you were in flight, you had to have your heels on. Not just in flight, going through the airport too. You had to have your heels on with your uniform. But then when you served, because we had meals back then.
That's right. That's right. Even in domestic flights. Yes.
You got to put on flats. So otherwise.
So you could serve.
You could serve. And then you put your heels back on. And then, of course, there were things like, for appearance, you had to have your lips and nail tips had to match.
Oh.
You had lipstick and fingernail polish. There was a weight, a weigh-in back then. That was before weight restrictions were released. Yeah. You could not, for your height, you had to be a certain weight. So we would literally go in, there was a scale when you walked in. Before you clocked in, you hopped on the scale.
Unbelievable. Oh my gosh. And so did you ever see anyone get turned away like too much pasta in California? You're not going to be able to work this flight.
No, but I had a roommate who was very cautious because of, I guess, how close maybe she was to some of the limits, and she would always be nervous.
Oh,
Oh,
bless her.
I know. I don't recall her not making a flight, like coming back, going like, dang it.
like they're going to leave you and
Oh,
go.
but I do remember her always being nervous that it was
Gosh.
called you'd be grounded. You would like be grounded. You couldn't fly.
You stop it
Wow.
right now.
Dayna, were there any male stewardesses at the time?
So it'd
There
be a
were
steward.
A
a
steward,
steward.
yes, a
Uh-huh.
male steward.
Um, and
But they were few and far between. Now it's about
there were
50
a few.
50
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you go
yeah.
on. Yeah.
It wasn't as much. Yeah.
I can't believe I said male stewardesses.
Well, actually, that's why they came up with flight attendant because it was more
Right.
gender neutral. And
Oh,
they were trying to instill that terminology around the time I was flying. They were bringing that to surface, but it never
But still
really.
weighing people in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dayna,
I'm still learning.
did you like some of the people you flew with? Like, did you make friends or?
I did.
y'all
I
were
did.
roommates, weren't you, Dayna? There were three of you, all flight attendants.
Um, yeah, I think it was 4 in Atlanta because
Well,
we,
our friend Rhonda came and lived with you guys, but she
yeah,
wasn't a flight attendant.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, we in Atlanta when we first moved there, that's right. There were 3 of us and then Rhonda, but we were really close. But what happened was whenever Eastern Airlines went bankrupt, we were with them to the end, and all the other airlines were asking the Eastern Airline stewardess or flight attendants to come interview for them. And so then we all kind of went our own separate ways and we lost. That's
Yeah.
kind of the sad part of not having social media back then.
Yes.
Even though I tried to look them up on
Mhm.
Facebook, I wasn't successful, and that's so sad. Maybe they're not on. So
Yeah,
Maybe they're
maybe.
not.
And
anyway,
one other question I have, and we'll probably talk about this in the podcast too. You were talking about all your different roles. You also had to probably have the role of seeming to or remaining calm, even in situations that might have felt a little bit like, I don't know if there were times where you ever felt nervous or scared, like if it
Did
was
you,
about to be bad
Dayna? Did
weather.
you ever feel nervous or scared?
I just had one experience when I don't remember where the flight was going, but I just remember we were serving meals. I had a tray in my hand and I was serving, and it was right before the pilot asked the flight attendants to be seated because we were going through a storm. We were getting ready to approach a storm, and about the time he called and asked us to be seated, the lightning, I guess, hit one of the engines.
Oh
And
my
everything,
gosh.
everything went like choo, 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 dead silence. And we were like, the flight attendants were like falling around, falling down. And
Did it go dark in the plane?
just actually, it was brief. So I guess I don't really understand the situation. It was so long ago, but I think it was there's like an automated or some sort of a backup
Yeah, system.
system that immediately kicked in. But it was like maybe it felt like 30 seconds to a minute, and maybe
That's
it
a
was
long time to feel
It's
that way,
a
though.
really
to go
long time.
to like fall. But anyway, that was the most. I don't, I had instances with passengers, but nothing that I couldn't handle.
Handle.
Things
But
that
you had to probably always like, everything's fine, everything's good.
be on my guard
Pup,
too.
pup, pup, poker face.
I mean, because think about everything you hear about passengers or just
Yeah.
other flight. I mean, it's not easy.
It wouldn't be easy today for sure.
My colleague, we have to travel a lot for work, and she was just telling me she was actually on a flight, and this wasn't for work. She was traveling. She was with her, I think she's probably 8 years old and her 1-year-old baby. And her husband wasn't with them. And she's holding the baby and her 8-year-old is asleep and all of a sudden wakes up and says, "Oh, my tummy doesn't feel good," and threw up all over her and the 1-year-old. And so, of course, the flight attendant came and helped. But it's stuff like that all the time, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But then I also don't want to minimize the fun adventures I had either, because it was fun. The people I met just on the flights, I mean, we can talk about, passengers being disgruntled and all of that, which there are, but there are a lot of really nice,
amazing people
out there. So any opportunity I got just to visit and get to know people, and it's interesting to learn from all different backgrounds. So enjoyed so much of that in the travel and going to new places, even though I wasn't there long, just experiences I got to, and people I got to see that were friends and family wherever I went to. So great opportunity. And we got really great prices for immediate families. So my parents got to travel.
Could take advantage of that, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So real fans, let's stow those tray tables, put your seat backs in an upright position. It is time to rewind back to 1980 to see what was happening when Airplane first took flight.
Airplane crashed into theaters on July 2nd, 1980. Now, girls, I was a few weeks shy of my 12th birthday, which means that, Dayna, you were approaching 13 and we were about to go into junior high school. Can you believe that? And Amanda, I'm thinking you were about 3, yes?
I guess I would have turned 4 in September, so almost 4.
Yeah, so I believe I'm safe in assuming and saying that none of us saw this one in theaters. But
nope.
Maybe you did, Dayna, since Corey was a little older, but I know that we didn't, sister.
No, we didn't. Did you, Dayna?
I know I didn't go to the theater. I think what I recall is when I saw like commercials for it, I wasn't certain that I would necessarily like that kind of comedy. I just was uncertain about it. So I guess I didn't like rush to the theater. I just wasn't used to like slapstick, that kind of comedy. But then I think someone I was with or a group of people maybe had it on TV and I ended up watching it much later. I even think it was after my flight attendant days. So
yeah, it may have been a while
later.
It was probably on and you got sucked into it because you're like, Let
me look at this. I have to say, one of the reasons that I thought Dayna would be so perfect for this, and Amanda, we never talked about it. Is this the movie that you had the idea of to have Dayna on when we did a podcast for Purpose?
Yes.
Because we never really talked about it, but me too. But not just because she was a flight attendant. Dayna is one of the funniest and most fun people you will ever be around. As a matter of fact, year after year in Who's Who, Dayna would be voted usually best dressed and wittiest. She carried like the double award in
Well, that's fitting because Dayna also collected clowns.
Yes, she did. Right?
in your high school.
Really bizarre. So there's that too.
Yeah,
Whatever that says about
How many clowns did you have?
I had over 300.
So many.
300.
Yes. And Dayna collecting clowns, sister, led me to wanting to collect something. I wanted something to collect too. What did I collect, sister? Do you remember?
A favorite of the 1980s of that decade, unicorns. And you all were so serious about your collections, okay? Y'all are 8 years older than me. So as a child, as a first, second, third grader, I am looking at you all. I'm thinking Dayna's got these clowns and she's so serious about it. Missy and the unicorn. She even had her trash can from Happy Names with a unicorn painted on it with Missy and
That's right. That's right.
And y'all had like glass shelves with brass,
Well,
with
brass
your
was the other thing I wanted to collect was brass.
You had a lot of brass too. But here's the issue. I felt like, because you were my mentors, I would rack my brain. What am I going to collect? Literally, what is my heart's desire? Like, what am I going to collect? And it was always like a real point of contention for me because I never could settle on anything to collect. I was like, I don't know. What am I going to collect?
Well, that's why I landed on unicorns, not because I liked them, but because I needed something to collect because my bestie had a collection.
I truly would rack my brain. I mean, it would be a thing. Like, what am I? I've got to figure out what I'm going to collect.
Did you ever collect anything?
No.
Oh my goodness.
It's not too late. It's not too late.
I'm not a collector. I'm a minimalist.
She is not. Yeah.
No, that's not my vibe.
Okay, so I just gave someone a sign this past weekend and it said, do not collect things, collect memories.
Oh,
so you are a collector.
I do have a memory jar every year that we collect in. So
okay, there you go.
That's good.
Okay, so back to our history of what is happening during this time. This summer weekend of 1980, the U.S. was in the middle of a heat wave.
It's like a heat wave.
Burning in my heart. As a matter of fact, the summer of 1980, y'all, was one for the record books when it came to extreme heat. So it's not just now. Even back then, we had extreme heat.
Wait, what about global warming?
Well, it was happening then too, sister.
Okay.
Hundreds of people died.
Oh.
And it was recorded as one of the costliest and deadliest natural disasters in U.S. history.
Oh my. I don't know why I don't remember that. Do you remember that, Bestie?
Well, I just remember being in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and it was really hot. I don't know that I remember it being deadly.
A heat wave, yeah.
I remember it being really hot, and we would always get Mom to stop at that corner store and we'd get ices.
Yes, ices. And I guess you can still get ices, but then they were like such a treat. They'd have the rounded top and the straw with the spoon. And Dayna, you always got the blue one, didn't you? You would always get the blue one.
I think they still have them.
They're not like as prevalent. They used to be like in every store. Because I know I saw them this past summer at a Buc-ee's when we stopped, and I got excited. Like, there's an icy.
Yeah, they're not everywhere, but they definitely still have them.
I'm gonna have to get one the next time I see them.
Now, wait, I have a question. Is this the corner store where Mom passed out?
The orange store. Dayna, do you remember the orange store on Oak Grove Road?
Yes, I remember it.
Is that the corner store you're talking about?
Any corner store had
like a curb store.
A curb store. Curb store, corner store, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, the orange store, Dayna. Our mom passed out when I was 5 years old. She had left me in the Lincoln by myself, and she went in, and I was like, where's Mom? And I waited. I went in, and she was behind the ice cream cooler. She had passed out. She had hit her arm funny on the door when she went in, and it scared
Mama
Lonnie. I know. Such memories. Okay, so do you remember, Dayna, what kind of car we were in with your mom when we would get those ices? Because I'm thinking that right about this time, Toyota had just released the Corolla, and it was airing on commercials, and the choir would sing like, "Oh, what a feeling to drive Toyota." And they jump in the air. Do y'all remember that commercial? I know I was on pitch for that.
Oh my gosh. Yes, again, such a great memory, unlike me. But I remember that my mom was driving some kind of like a gold Buick or something. It was bigger.
Did you and Corey have a Corolla in high school?
So Corey and I got it was orange. Remember, it was like
I do. Yes, you picked me up
or
from
something.
school every other day because you got to drive to school on.
That's
every other day, and you would come pick me up until I got to drive that next summer.
Yeah, in the Coug.
In the Cougar.
Yeah, we shared a car though. Corey and I did because we were just like 13 months apart, and
Yeah.
we did that gas money deal where you would put enough gas in just to get you where you needed to go, and then the next person would like not have gas hardly. So
I
we ran out of
remember
gas
that.
one time
Y'all
too.
would argue about that quite a bit.
Oh, that's funny. I can't believe you would drive all the way over to get her.
Oh my gosh. And do you remember, Missy? It was a stick shift.
Yes, it was a
That's
stick shift.
that's where
Yes.
everyone learned how to drive a stick shift.
Was in your
that
car. Yes, your car.
And
Oh,
thank
that's
God,
crazy.
I can now drive. I could still drive it.
Well, I couldn't. I never could, but you did teach me in that car.
Oh, I
Were
did.
we singing "Oh What a Feeling to Drive
A
Toyota"?
Toyota?
I guess. I'm sure we did. We sang a lot.
I bet y'all
Yes,
tried to
we
take,
did.
I bet you tried to capture a picture of jumping up in the air like
We
they used to do
probably
on the
did
commercial.
on our
Oh, I
Polaroids.
have no doubt, no doubt. Well, speaking of taking pictures, the cover of People magazine that week had Glenn Campbell and Tanya Tucker on it, with the caption on the cover, Glenn and Tanya, the wildest affair in showbiz today.
Oh,
Campbell was 44 and Tucker was 21. And it
Wow.
also mentioned the Richard Pryor tragedy, which happened that June.
Yeah, it had just happened, right?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, he was smoking, I
mm.
think, like smoking crack and doused himself with rum and he caught on
Oh,
fire. It sounds awful, but he survived
He
because he
did
was in
survive. Yes.
films later. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I was trying to research about that a little bit more because I'm wondering if it contributed like to him getting healthier or I don't know.
I think it did.
didn't
I think it turned his life around.
life around. That's
do.
kind of the sense I was getting, but I didn't get enough like to verify, but that's the sense I was getting when I was reading about it.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about the music from this week in 1980. The number
Great
one
music.
song was Coming Up by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah,
But
Paul McCartney and Wings.
and there were some others in the top five. I loved Funky Town.
Won't you take me to
I knew that was coming. I love it. And okay, now go for The Rose, Bette Midler.
So serious, like so
Oh.
dramatic. It is so serious.
I got one of those Billboard magazines when I was that age, and I got it specifically because it had all the lyrics to The Rose.
Oh.
And I promise you, I read those
can't, no.
lyrics and I sang that song to the top of my lungs. Some say love.
Okay, I knew you were going to do it. I knew it. I love it.
That is where my daughter gets it from. The genes have just come right through
If I
me.
only had an ounce of her talent. If I only had an ounce of her talent. Anything else, Dayna?
And then let's let you sing us away with some Billy Joel. It's still rock and roll.
Oh my gosh. All of us could do that, right? It's still
rock and roll to me. Say they are. I don't know this Coming Up song. I don't know that by Paul McCartney. I don't know what that is.
It makes me think of I'm coming up, but I think it's out. I think it's I'm coming out. But
we got it. We got to take a listen to that later. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can do a social post with that and share that song.
Okay.
And Dayna, I promise I couldn't make this up if I tried. Guess who was on the cover of the TV guide? Any guesses? The cast of Taxi. Now, that is an inside joke for Dayna.
I know where you're going.
Yes. And this is actually going to take us back to a podcast with a purpose because Dayna, your mom, Mrs. C, loved Andy Kaufman, who played Latka on Taxi. And he always mumbled. And she and I always had this joke. Something would come up and she'd be like, Latka, Latka, Latka. And then I would do it and we would just laugh for no reason. But Dayna, I couldn't make that up if I tried that you're on this podcast and that time is when
meant to be.
It's meant to be.
meant to be.
And thank y'all again for doing podcasts with a purpose for Parkinson's too. Speaking of my mom, that was heartwarming that y'all did that. So
It's our pleasure. We love it.
And by the way, contributions are coming in. They're coming in. Yes.
Yeah, it's
we're
amazing.
making an impact.
We're making a real difference on Real Sisters.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
I know, I do too.
A good bubble bath will give you ideas every day.
That's right. That's right.
Well, this film was written and directed by Jim Abrahams and the Zucker brothers, Jerry and David, who were masters of parody. They actually based Airplane on the 1957 film called 0 Hour. Missy, I'm sure Chris Washam has seen it.
He probably has.
They even bought the rights to the film so they could spoof it, which is really good to know, y'all, because the whole time I was rewatching this, I was thinking, to come from something. Like this had to come from some other movie or some idea. And a sidebar, this is interesting. Jerry Zucker also produced Ghost in 1990, which is really funny to me because Ghost is like not a comedy except for the Whoopi Goldberg part.
Oh, yeah. That is such a great movie. But if you go and look at their resume of movies, they are almost all these slapstick.
I know, which is funny that Ghost comes into play.
Right? It's totally different. Yeah.
It is. And I'm telling you, with all they didn't hold back. It was an hour and 28 minutes of runtime. The movie packed in over 200 jokes. Some of them came so fast, like you had to watch it again, like rewind, do it again.
Oh, yeah.
It was rated PG, but I mean, in all honesty, some of those jokes might push the boundaries as far as I'm concerned. A bit even by today's standards. I mean,
yes.
Oh my gosh, yes. I literally could not believe that this movie wasn't rated R. And I recognize
Agreed.
I recognize they didn't have a PG-13 as an option then, but it didn't need to be PG-13. It needed to be R.
It did.
There's
it
nudity.
had some full frontal boobage action.
I know. I was truly shocked. But this cast, let's talk about them for a moment. You've got Robert Hayes as Ted Stryker and Julie Haggerty as Elaine Dickinson, the quintessential comedy leads.
At the time, that was a big deal, sister.
I'm sure. I can totally see that. But then there's Leslie Nielsen, who stole the show as Dr. Rummick. Airplane was actually a turning point for him, and I did not know this. He had been known as a serious actor prior, but this movie turned him into a comedy legend, as we know. And we can't forget to mention Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who played the co-pilot Roger Murdoch, and that was hysterical to me when the little kid kept being like, or was it was it the kid or a man? I don't remember.
It was the kid. It was the kid.
Being like, "You're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar."
Yeah,
I was like,
and he was denying it. It really was. It was a wild mix of stars, and also it had the mom from Leave It to Beaver, Barbara Billingsley, and Jill Whelan, who might not be a familiar name, but she was a child star in the late 70s and much of the 80s on one of my favorite shows. It came on Saturday nights, The Love Boat. And she actually played Vicky Steubing, Captain Steubing's daughter.
Yes, I knew I recognized her. I was like, I know her. I know she was on another show, and it is totally Love Boat. I got it in my head now.
Yes.
Oh, hey, and Missy, I just have to say one thing when you mentioned the mom from Leave It to Beaver.
Yes.
Did you notice her role in Airplane? I cracked up because here's Leave It to Beaver mom, who was a
hysterical
jive.
Yes.
Jive talk. And
one of my favorite parts.
Jive talking.
At first, I couldn't even place her. I'm like, wait, what? She's playing that role? I died.
I think that's what made it so funny. Is that it was the dichotomy of the goody two shoes with the jive talking woman on the plane.
Yeah.
Older lady. That's the Beeves mom. Not like what Wally and the Beeve.
Sorry, I just cracked up at that. Oh, and the budget for the movie was just $3.5 million, which is pretty modest by Hollywood standards. But the movie made over $171 million worldwide, proving that audiences were kind of hungry for this humor, which was a little bit surprising to me. But
Yeah.
it wasn't just a box hit, it was a cultural phenomenon because I guess slapstick hit the screens.
Well, I think that we had not seen anything like that, or
Yeah.
America hadn't. I mean, we didn't see it at the time, did we? But I just want to say, Dayna, look at you coming on to the podcast with your statistics, girl. Go you.
What can I say?
One thing I will say is that about this time, I do remember people were quoting lines like, "Don't call me Shirley," and "I'm serious, don't call me Shirley." That was everywhere. And this movie, it had a few sequels. I didn't see any of them. I don't. Did you girls see any of the sequels?
No.
No,
No, me either. That one was enough for me, but
didn't.
it did inspire parody films like The Naked Gun, which is huge. And as we said, the Zucker brothers and Abrahams created with this movie an entirely new genre.
Yeah, so true. Airplane wasn't just funny, it was groundbreaking, really. It took risks, pushed boundaries while, it should have been rated R, and showed that comedy could be smart and ridiculous. And that is the truth. Like there are so many things
Yeah.
with the wordplay that is really smart and
It's
clever, but
clever,
it's
yeah.
so ridiculous. You're like, it's so stupid, but it is clever. And they're doing it at the same time. So it's no wonder that it's still considered one of the greatest comedies of all time.
Well, I have to say, I was surprised. The film had 7 nominations and 3 wins, but they were from various, in air quotes, award shows, right? Most of them were obscure, but it was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Comedy or Musical, and it won the Writers Guild Award of American Award for Best Comedy adopted from another medium. So I guess
that makes sense, though, because
yeah,
the writing is very clever.
the writing is clever. But all right, I think it's time, ladies, that we get ready for takeoff as we dive into Airplane. And so, Dayna, we're going to ask you to take a walk down memory lane back to the days where you were an Eastern Airlines stewardess. Would you lead us into the movie?
Yes. May I please have everyone's attention? We ask that you fasten your seatbelts at this time and secure all belongings underneath your seat or in the overhead compartments. Make sure your seats and table trays are in the upright position because we are now ready for takeoff.
All right. The movie opens with the Jaws music, which was hysterical. Immediately, I was like, that is fantastic because Jaws had been this phenomenon.
Yes, it was brilliant.
Now we see the plane, the fin of the airplane slicing through the clouds, and it sets the tone right away, knowing this is going to be ridiculous and hilarious.
Absolutely. And then we're at the airport and it is chaos. People are unloading and loading and watching it this time, I realized that a lot of the people we see in this chaotic scene at the beginning of the movie are actual passengers on our flight. And of course, I think this stood out to me when I was young the first time I saw it, is that we've got a glimpse of those overly persistent religious, like zealot groups handing out flowers to passengers.
Everybody,
Yes.
to everybody.
I mean,
Yes.
there was so many funny things. Did you ladies notice the hilarious bickering announcements over the intercom about the
Yes.
red and white zones for
Yes.
unloading? The man and the woman making the announcements are arguing like a married couple, but guess what, ladies?
What?
The voice actors for the airport announcers were actually a married couple who made the same announcements at Los Angeles International Airport in real life.
Oh,
You
nugget, Dayna. Yeah.
That is so interesting. And it's funny because so I was watching the movie and I was like looking at my email too or something, and I'm hearing it and I was like, wait, are they starting to bicker? Like I questioned myself. And then I got it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is hysterical.
Yeah, they hired them for this movie.
That's
fantastic.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, meanwhile, a ground crew worker is giving the directions to guide the plane, but he gets distracted while he's giving the directions to a fellow worker and points the other direction. And so the plane's just following his lead. And instead of directing the plane to the runway, he sends it crashing through the airport windows. And it is so silly. But it's just this hilarious visual humor. And I think this is the scene, Missy, where we see JJ from Good Times washing the window. And I was like, is that JJ?
Yes.
It is.
It is, yes. And then, of course, we meet Ted Stryker, our leading man, who's arriving at the airport in a taxi. He runs inside. By the way, did y'all notice how he told the taxi he'd be right back? And then throughout the movie, the taxi driver's still there.
Yes.
But he runs inside to confront Elaine, a flight attendant, not nearly as beautiful as my bestie Dayna. But she is his ex-girlfriend who has clearly left him like a Dear John type letter or something, right? He's begging her for another chance, but she's done with him. She says she cannot respect him anymore. And here's where Ted, I don't know if you guys noticed this, he breaks the fourth wall for the first time. So he turns and looks at the camera, right? That's what you call breaking the fourth wall. And he says, what a pisser. It's so unexpected and funny, but it made me think of all of them, The Office, how they break the fourth wall all the time in that series. It just was funny to me when he did that.
It was kind of like a Ferris Bueller. I think that was
the
first break into the fourth wall.
Yep, that happens a lot in Ferris Bueller too. Meanwhile, Captain Ovier, played by Peter Graves, who was really famous back in the early 70s in the Mission Impossible TV series, is called to the white courtesy phone.
Oh my gosh, this was hysterical.
Absolutely. He gets a call from the Mayo Clinic about a girl on his flight who needs a heart transplant. The scene is filled with visual gags, like the heart that's literally sitting on the doctor's desk beating, and jars of mayonnaise in the background, the Mayo
because
Clinic.
Of the mayo, right?
Oh. And the word play on this phone call is, I'm not going to say it right now because I'm going to use it later when I talk about my favorite scene.
All right. Well, as the passengers board, we meet Roger Murdoch, as you said earlier, Amanda, is played by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's one of the co-pilots. Now, it's so obvious that he's playing himself, right? That he is himself as the pilot, and then all throughout the movie, as we said, he denies it's him.
Yep.
Well, Ted decides he's going to board the flight too. So he buys a ticket in the smoking section, which is funny, right? Because the smoking, which we were talking about earlier, literally the ticket was smoking. It was so funny because he asked for a ticket and smoking, and boy, did he get one.
A smoking ticket.
He was determined to win Elaine back, even though she's clearly moved on, right? She's like, I am done.
I'm done. Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I couldn't fly on a plane now if it still had a smoking section.
Oh, me either. I can't even be in a restaurant.
I know, restaurants and bars.
I know.
But it's funny, if you get on, most of the planes that I board still have up in the, overhead compartment, you'll see a little picture of a cigarette that's never lit up that you can smoke, but I still see that little cigarette sign.
Yeah, like they haven't changed stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The flashback scenes are where the movie lets us in on what has broken up our lead couple, because I was definitely wondering at this point.
Yeah.
Ted starts telling an old lady about how he and Elaine met at a bar and did some dancing and fell in love.
Amanda was the lady interested in his story.
No.
she was boring him to death, wasn't she? Well,
He was, yes.
Yeah, he was boring her to death. Back in the present, Elaine is taking dinner orders. Steak or fish, she asks. And Ted tries to reconnect with her, but she brushes him off. I have to ask you real quick, Dayna, is that what you would do? Would they have two choices or was it when you were serving, would it just be like, this is what you get? You get what
Oh
you get.
no,
You don't pitch a fit.
you had choices, even if you weren't in first class. Like first class, the choices were a little bit, nicer. But yeah, no, you had choices for
Oh
sure.
my gosh.
Mhm.
Well, it
And,
was
and
steak or fish on this flight.
and it
Um,
was, and trust me, they were cooking them in the oven, if you remember that. So we cooked. We put on
Imagine the
aprons.
smell of that.
Yeah. But Elaine, did y'all notice Elaine was wearing her apron during the time she was taking orders? So as I
Oh,
mentioned
yeah.
earlier, yes, as I mentioned earlier, we did that. We had our aprons. Mhm.
Yes. Well,
Would you really
go ahead.
would you really serve like something like steak or fish like that
Steak was usually nicer for the first class.
first
It was
class?
probably more like chicken and rice,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But usually you did have choices. I would say some flights, not all of them. Some flights you would.
Wow.
Well, meanwhile, we are being introduced to more passengers, like the young boy who wants to visit the cockpit. And ladies, it's so inappropriate, especially in the light of through the lens of today's world. Like, I don't even think that we can talk about some of the things that were shared because they certainly weren't things that a captain should be asking a young boy, right?
Or when he was like, "Oh no, we can stay up here with us. No, it's fine. Just let him stay back."
I know. Oh, how things have changed. I mean, we used to be able to go into the cockpit. Dana, I bet you took kids up there all the time.
Oh, yes, we took them, but I mean, I remember the first time I flew into JFK, I had a pilot that said, "Oh, you can sit up here." I mean, there was an extra jump seat in the cockpit, and I sat during the landing.
Dana, when the first time I ever flew by myself, I flew to see you in Atlanta. And do you remember that I sat in the cockpit the entire time with the two pilots, and I can remember it was so beautiful, like coming into that Atlanta airport, sitting in the front of that plane. But guys, we can't even what is it? No loitering around the cockpit now. Like you can't even get close to it.
No, it's like 6 feet away or whatever
Yes.
it is. I know.
Oh,
It's
how the
crazy.
world has changed. Amanda, do you have any memory because you're so much younger than us of ever being in the cockpit, et
I
cetera?
remember that it was just not, I mean, it was pretty like open for business up there. But definitely like I never was in the cockpit. But I think it's cool that y'all were because I wonder if I would feel differently. I mean, pretty okay about flying now, but I used to be pretty fearful. If I had been able to sit in the cockpit and like see it in action, if I would feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting. I wonder we should have researched it why it's called a cockpit. Interesting. Oh well. There we go.
Very, very interesting. But as we were talking about the food that we served back in the day and then what they're serving on the flight, it wasn't the nuts and the pretzels like we have today, or really just pretzels now, right? But they things started to go wrong as the flight progressed, and passengers who ate the fish on that flight were getting violently ill. So it's like you had a choice. Too bad you chose the fish.
Yeah, and it kind of like takes them a little while to figure this out. And to connect the dots. They're like, "Oh, the fish. Oh, he had the fish. He had the fish."
And then when they go in the cockpit. She takes the doctor, Elaine takes the doctor in the cockpit after she finds one, right? She's looking all over for a doctor, and the lady sitting next to the doctor's like, I think he's a doctor. And Elaine's like, really? And he's got this stethoscope on.
That is a hysterical, a hysterical scene to me. I think he's a doctor.
I think she takes them into the cockpit, and then one by one, they all start falling down, incapacitated. If you had the fish, right? The pilot looks at that fish bone, the carcass, is what I was trying to say, and it's like all of a sudden has the symptoms.
Yes.
The fever, the shaking, whatever. And then the automatic pilot, literally an inflatable dummy, takes over. And even he deflates at one point, but yeah, all that's going on.
That was hysterical. I loved that, the part with the pilot when they were calling out the symptoms, and like every time they would say a symptom, he would have the symptom.
Yeah, that was funny.
It was really funny. The deflated autopilot that leads to another hilariously inappropriate part where Elaine has to reinflate him manually.
You know, they actually gave that autopilot a name, and like he's in the billing for the movie. His name is Otto, which is hysterical to me.
I saw that. Well, in the midst of all these shenanigans, we see Ted sitting by many different folks sharing his war stories.
And Amanda, do they want to hear these stories?
No. But poor guy, he's obviously suffering from PTSD.
Yeah.
And from his
that's
time.
real.
That is real, but I don't know that his story, Well, anyway, the PTSD is real, but yeah. So
it's exaggerated here.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Absolutely. And that was coming from his time as an Air Force pilot. And it seems his struggle with that has now caused a problem in his relationship.
Yes, I'm just going to pause and do a shout out for all of the people who have served in our military, and we're lifting prayers up for anyone that has suffered from PTSD. We know it's a real thing. Absolutely. Well, back to our flight. Now things are desperate, and a flight attendant comes over the loudspeaker and asks if anyone knows how to fly a plane. Now, can you ladies imagine hearing that announcement if you were on a plane?
Absolutely. And but this is what was so funny to me. Before she says that, she tells them, everything's fine. We've got it together. Remain calm. And then she asks for if there's anyone who knows how to fly a plane. And then they all freak out.
Yeah. Well, after this announcement, Ted reluctantly goes to the front to pilot the plane. And of course, air control steps in to help, right? Because the passenger is at the steering wheel of the plane. I know that's not what it's called. I know our real fans will correct me, but you know what I mean. This team is led by Rex Kramer, who's played by Robert Stack, and they obviously have a history. Rex Kramer is talking Ted through landing the plane, but as we know, Ted is really battling his own doubts because of everything that happened in the war. He's nervous, but Elaine is there, and she's supporting him in this.
And finally, Ted is able to pull it all together, and he successfully, air quotes, lands the plane. It is landed, but it is the loudest landing anyone has ever seen, but everyone survives, and that's really what matters. The passengers slide down the emergency chutes, and Ted and Elaine share that famous romantic kiss on the runway.
Yes,
they do. And what about the buckets of sweat pouring off of his face while he's landing? I mean, it's just like gushing down. But just when you think it's over, we see the inflatable pilot take off in the plane with his inflatable girlfriend.
She didn't make the billing. She didn't make the billing.
There's fireworks in the background, and it's the perfect, absolutely absurd ending to an absolutely absurd movie.
You're exactly right. And so, before we talk about if this movie stands the test of time, just real quickly, there were so many outlandish things happening throughout this movie in the background, in main scenes, and there's no way we could have covered them all. So, I asked you ladies to come with a share of one of your favorite, one of those kind of outlandish things from the movie. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. And I
Okay.
will say, too, I think that's one of the reasons it's so fun to watch this movie multiple times because you can see something new whenever you rewatch it.
Yeah.
You're
And
like, oh
some
my gosh,
things
I
you
didn't
don't want
catch
to
that.
see.
That too. But it's a good one for rewatching because it's kind of like a puzzle and looking for funny things that are happening. But my favorite, one of my favorite, we talked about the scene where the pilot is talking to the doctor from the Mayo Clinic, and I mentioned the wordplay. I love it when he's talking to him and he says, they're trying to transfer the call, and he says, I'll take ham on 5, hold the Mayo.
Yeah, because like somebody like Hamilton was
Yeah,
calling him on another one, and he held the
yeah,
Mayo Clinic. That
yeah.
is funny. That is a very clever play on words. All right, Dana, what was your favorite outlandish part?
Well, we already talked about one of them, so I'm going to pass on that one. The one where Elaine is trying to calm all the passengers and then asking for someone to fly the plane. So that one, of course. But we didn't really talk about any of the Johnny scenes back at air control, and that's Jerry Zucker. And
Yes.
he's quite comical, and I had a hard time picking like one of my favorites. But I think the one that stands out to me the most is when I forgot the other actor's name when he walks over to Johnny and he's got like a map or some directions or something. And he's like, Johnny, what can you make of this? And he hands it to him, and then he's like, oh, and he grabs it, and he's like, oh, a hat, a broom,
Yes.
and everything. That was one of my favorites. And then the J.C. Penney ad, where he's like supposed to be looking at something important, and Johnny's like, oh, look, there's a sale at J.C. Penney's. I'm like, oh,
I'm so
for
glad
Penny.
you said that one because that I was choosing between that and the one I'll share. But he was, I mean, just so insane that he was doing all of that. But it was so funny and
So funny.
inappropriate in the midst of what was supposed to be
Yeah.
serious concern. So I'm glad you said that one, Dana.
Yeah, that was good. That was really funny.
Hey,
Okay.
Missy, what's yours?
So mine is the scene I spoke about her earlier, Jill Whelan, who played the sick girl, who Amanda was the
Oh, yeah.
one the Mayo Clinic was calling about. And the nun had a guitar and went to the went to the mom and said, "Is it okay if I sing her a song?" She starts singing her this song, and the nun is so into it. She knocks out the IV, and
Starts
she
spazzing
starts
out.
spazzing out, and And by the way, she got a movie award for being like the worst performance by a child in a featured role. She was a stinker. She was a nominee for the Stinker Award. But
Seriously?
that
That's
made me laugh. And I remember laughing at that like
oh,
the first time I saw it. And over again, to me, that one is just
Yeah.
hysterical because the nun is trying to help, but she's completely
Yeah.
clueless.
No,
She's
and they're
all into
so
her. She's getting her groove on.
music. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the mom too. Like they're all so into the music.
Yeah.
Nobody
I'm
notices that she's
so glad
spazzing.
you said that one. I'm so glad you did.
Oh,
No,
so
Yeah.
then we could list so many more,
I
but we
know.
don't have enough time.
I know.
But
Oh,
maybe our real fans can share theirs with us on social
Yes,
media this
please
week.
do.
oh, that'd be
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Okay, ladies. So at the end of every review or rewind, it's not really a review. At the end of every rewind, Dana, we always talk about how we feel this movie holds up now as compared to when it came out in 1980 for this particular film. So, what do y'all think?
Why don't
Oh,
we let our guests go first?
oh, hey, I think
I know
for
it's not really your genre, sister. I
it's
know, Dana, it's not.
that type of comedy, but I really think that for people that love that type of comedy, it does. I
Yeah,
mean, It's just a timeless, slapstick
Getting late, y'all. It's getting late.
comedy. So probably
No, I completely agree. I think it's a classic that, I mean, does it hold up as like, oh, well, this is what it's like to fly on an airplane now? I mean, well, it really
right.
probably wasn't exactly then either. But so some of that is very different, but I think that makes it all the more hysterical.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, this was my thought as I was watching it again. Like, I was thinking, like, this isn't just so funny to sit here and just watch it. Like, I didn't crack myself up a lot just watching it, but talking about it, like,
It's funny.
even if we hadn't done it on Real Sisters Rewind, my husband Chris and I will have quotes from this movie all the time, and then we laugh. So it's really in the talking about the ludicrousy of it all that it stands the test of time, because we still use quotes from that. Every once in a while, Crystal will say something about, do you watch gladiator movies or whatever that crazy question was. And so I think for people who saw it back in the day, it still stands the test of time. And look, those slapstick parody movies, they're still making them today, and Airplane was one of the first.
Yeah. I think it's something too that if somebody watched today for the first time, they would think it was funny.
Yeah, maybe so.
I mean, surely you can be serious, right?
And don't call me Shirley.
Well,
it's awesome.
Real fans, if it's been a while since you watched this comedy classic, or if you've somehow missed it entirely, drop everything and get ready to laugh until you cry. And thank you so much to my soul sister and lifelong bestie, Dayna. Thank you for coming and being with us for this fun episode.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for including me, real sisters. I love you.
We love
you. We love you. Well, folks, that's it for our high-flying journey through Airplane, a movie so over the top, it makes turbulence look tame. Missy, next week, we are switching gears to a movie that trades comedy for something much more intense.
That's right. Dayna, we're going to give some clues, so see if you can guess it. Next week's film isn't about laughs. It's about survival. The first clue, this movie takes us into an alternate version of history where teens become unlikely heroes in a fight for freedom.
Clue 2. The title shares its name with a natural phenomenon, but trust me, there's nothing calm about this one.
And you think you know, Dayna? Are you figuring it out?
Keep going.
Okay, clue number 3. And you can't say it, by the way, Dayna, if you do figure it out.
Yeah, don't say it.
This one has some iconic 80s stars leading the charge. And if you listen closely, you might hear someone whispering, Wolverine.
That's a good clue. That's a good clue. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on social media and share your thoughts about the movie. What was your favorite ridiculously hilarious part of Airplane? We'd love to hear.
I want to know, though, real quick, Amanda, Dayna, do you think you know what the movie is?
I might.
Okay.
I can't tell you here.
No,
no, you'll tell us later. You tell us later. All right, remember, if you love our podcast, please leave the podcast and the episode a review and a 5-star rating. Thanks for helping us spread the word. Bye,
y'all.
Bye.